There we go. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Change Talk. Um trying to make sure that we've got some things straight here. So come on in, introduce yourself, say where you're joining me from. Um and if this is your first time, hello, my name is Dr. Tiffany Jenkins. I'm the founder and CEO of Awakening Change LLC. And our home base is in Marlton, New Jersey, but we are a virtual psychotherapy practice that caters to um, women of color, although we treat anybody who wants to be treated. And we help folks navigate life challenges, depression, anxiety, things like that. Hey, Laquita, how are you, my love? Um, so I come on, um, my goal is to come on twice a month and to talk about some topic with which I am familiar, either through personal experience or through my training. And I try to set aside about 20 to 30 minutes to have a conversation with you. Hopefully, that conversation is impactful in some way. It helps you in some way. It is meaningful to you in some way. Yeah, as you can see, this is like a really casual kind of conversation between friends. I am not a very stuffy therapist at all. So what you see is what you get. I just happen to be a little chilly tonight. So I'm in a hoodie. But it's a casual conversation. I like for you guys to interact and talk to me, talk back to me, as they say in church. Um, I am doing well, Quita. Thank you very much. I have no complaints today. Um, so I wanted to have a conversation about something that I've been seeing a lot about. Um, and A little bit of background. So, if you have followed me or are connected to me and have been connected to me, um, in any way for at least, I'll say, the past year, you know that I have kind of been this drum major for self-care, right? That's all that I have really been talking about on my social media platforms. The book that I wrote, I've been doing some interviews with some really amazing folks all about self-care. And part of the reason for that is that a lot of what I was seeing folks come to the practice with, that they needed issues, that they were having issues with, really surrounded their inability to, I'll say, consistently take care of themselves, right? It wasn't so much that there was an identified um pathology, as we call it clinically, right? There was nothing really that I could go and fill out a checklist for and say, okay, you meet clinical criteria for depression or anxiety, even though folks were presenting as kind of depressed or kind of anxious and kind of whatever. And so I started doing really intense counseling with my clients around this issue of self-care, and not self-care just being something that we do once a week or like an occasional mani-pedi or something like that, but self-care being this comprehensive thing that we do consistently for ourselves to fill our cups, right? And the reason why we want to keep our cups full is not because you can't pour from an empty cup. Yes, that's true. But because I wanted to encourage folks to live lives that were so full and so complete that they were actually pouring from the saucer or from their overflow, so that we get away completely from this idea of having to take from us in order to be of value or of meaning to someone else, right? So the deeper I got into that, the more I started doing some research about some of the reasons why we don't really take time for ourselves or take care of ourselves, right? And so one of the places that landed me, one was doing research specifically into Black women, because about 90% of my caseload right now is Black women. Might even be a little bit higher. I've been saying, I feel like I've been saying 90% for a long time, but there's a large percentage of my personal caseload that is Black women. And so I started looking first at uh what's called racialized trauma, right? And the ways that lived experiences as a Black person in America, or the descendants, American descendant of of people who were enslaved, impacts our ability to care for ourselves. And did some research there. That was really the heart of the book. But one of the other things that I started looking into was this phenomenon called burnout. And in the past couple of months, as the world has started, quote unquote, opening back up, I feel like there's been a lot more talk about burnout and just how exhausted people have been from the pandemic, and just all of the stress and strain that we've been under for the majority of the past 2 years and how that's impacted us. And so, me being the researcher that I am, I decided to go back and find out, okay, where did this term burnout even come from? Right? Like, I've heard it for a long time, and most of the time when I've heard the term, it was in reference to just strictly professional settings, right? So most of the time people talk about their burnout from work. But there's a little bit more to burnout than that. And the term has actually been around for quite some time. It's actually newer than I thought it was, but still, it's still got a little traction to it. The earliest work that I could find, now again, this is just me and the research that I've done. If you have something else, please by all means share it. Um, but the earliest work that I could find was by a man whose name I'm probably going to butcher. Dr. Herbert Freudenberger is how I'm going to say it. That may not at all be the way that it is pronounced, but that's what we're going to go with today. So, Dr. Herbert is what I'm going to call him, just to save myself on live tonight, right? So Dr. F um wrote a book called Burnout. The book is literally called Burnout: How to Beat the High Cost of Success. And he wrote this book back in 1980. If you have a chance, let me see if I can grab it. This is the book. You can see how like yellow and old it looks. It really is like classic. Like the pages are kind of brown. But if you have a chance, I would encourage you to pick this book up. Um, yes, Doc, I'm live and I can actually see who's commenting this time. So we got our tech issues out the way. Thank you very much, ma'am. If you have a chance, I would encourage you to pick this book up if this is a topic that resonates with you. There are a few reasons why. There's a lot of folks who have written about burnout, but the folks that have written about burnout are really regurgitating some things and translating, I'll say, some things that Dr. Herbert started with this book. He has a second book that he wrote that is specifically about burnout in women, that is equally as good. But one of the things that struck me as very interesting is that this book is over 30 years old, but it sounds like it was written specifically in reference to everything that we have experienced with this pandemic. It's mind blowing. The things that we have experienced with this pandemic, um, and the ways that we're starting to talk about and conceptualize burnout now, are things that he outlined in his book 30 plus years ago. Um, One of the things that I really wanted to talk about tonight, though, is that contrary to what we have made it to be, Burnout is so much more than just work related. There are people who are so exhausted about things that have nothing to do with their actual work. And we're missing them in these conversations about burnout, right? Yes, Doc, you definitely need to read this book. Um, One of the things that he does, and I'm gonna ask the questions, and thankfully we're not all together, so you can kind of think through these questions on your own. But his questionnaire to determine how burnt out, I'll say, you are, um, is not just, again, it's not just work related. And I'm going to read the questions to you. He suggests that you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5, one being like there's really, this really doesn't apply, 5 meaning it really does apply. And then you add up your scores at the end, and the higher your score is, the greater risk you are for significant health interruptions as a result of the burnout, right? So one of the questions is, have you recently, and all of these questions are within the last 6 months, found yourself getting tired more easily, felt more fatigued than energetic, right? That's not a question that relates to work. That's, how are you feeling? How's your energy level doing? You need to check in with that. Are people annoying you by telling you you don't look so good lately? Are people starting to notice that there's some differences in the way that you're showing up in different spaces? Are you working harder and harder and accomplishing less and less? This one is kind of a big one because the work doesn't necessarily have to be your professional work. It could be academic work. It could be your work in the community. It could be your work at home. It could be anything. Are you doing more and seeing fewer results? Are you increasingly cynical and disenchanted? Are you a little wise cracking a little bit more than your normal self? Are you often invaded by a sadness that you can't explain? Are you forgetting appointments, deadlines, uh losing your keys more frequently than you used to, your personal possessions? Where did I put that? Are you increasingly irritable, more short-tempered, more disillusioned with things? Are you seeing close family and friends less frequently? Are you too busy to do even routine things like make phone calls, do reports? If you're a therapist, do your progress notes. Like, are you so overwhelmed that you can't do those things? Right? Are you suffering from physical complaints? And this is one that I always talk to folks about. Sometimes that lingering headache, that stomach discomfort has nothing at all to do with the physical problem. That is your emotional health saying, hey, I need you to check on me, right? Um, what's the other one? Do you feel disoriented when the activities of the day come to a halt, when your day is over that and you have nothing left to do? Are you feeling discombobulated? Is joy elusive? Are you having a hard time finding your joy? Are you unable to laugh at jokes about yourself? Are you taking yourself too seriously? Um, does sex, if you are sexually active, seem like more trouble than it's worth? Which means you're not connecting intimately with your partner anymore. And do you have very little to say to people? Like, are you just short and you just don't want to talk anymore? So, full transparency, the first time I did this questionnaire, I had nearly all fives, and the fives are um, to a great extent or to a great deal or a great deal. So, my score, have it written right here in the book, my score the first time I took this test was 64. 64. 51 to 64 indicates you are burning out. 65 and over indicates you're in a dangerous place. I was at 64. 64. Me, the self-care maven, was at 64. Why? Because a lot of times we think about burnout as I don't want to do the work anymore. And that's the only thing we think about when we think about burnout. It's just I'm done, I have nothing else to give, and it's over. In all actuality, burnout is kind of the opposite of that. Burnout, as originally conceptualized, is really what we like to call type A tendencies. It's that giving and giving and giving, and that I got to make it work even when it's not really working. I just got, okay, just one more. Maybe if I work a little bit harder, I'm going to stay up this extra hour. I'm going to figure out how to make it work. Except you're working harder and not smarter, and you're not seeing any return on the investment that you're making. That's burnout, right? I'm going to read to you what he says. He's Dr. Dr. Herbert. I told you I'm not going to try to pronounce this man's name and butcher it. He says, whenever the expectation level is dramatically opposed to reality and the person persists in trying to reach that expectation, trouble is on the way. When there's an expectation, in other words, you have this unrealistic expectation of what success or achievement looks like. When you are trying to reach perfection, this pinnacle that is not really feasible. And even though it's not working, you keep trying to make it work. You're trying to make a dollar out of 15 cents, right? It sounds really good, but that I don't care how hard you try, that 15 cents is not going to become a dollar. You're going to have to take that 15 cents and invest it and do some other things with it. But just sitting there and willing that 15 cents to be a dollar is not the way it's going to work, no matter how hard you try. And how many of us find ourselves in that situation? How many of us are in relationships that our expectation and the reality are so far apart, but we keep trying and we keep working, and we know these folks are toxic and they're no good for us, and we're burning out trying to make an impossible situation work? How many of us are in jobs that we know the expectation of what we thought it was going to be and the reality of what it is are so far apart, and yet we keep saying, well, maybe if I just go in a little bit earlier, maybe if I stay a little bit later. Meanwhile, our home lives are falling apart. We've lost our connection with the folks who really do fill our cup. We've stopped doing those extracurricular exercises, right? Basically, we're not doing self-care anymore. If you think about it, self-care is, and I mean real self-care, consistent self-care, multidimensional self-care, really is the cure for burning out, whether it's personally, in our relationships, in our work lives, in our community engagement, whatever it is. If we're not taking the time to evaluate, one, what our capacity is, and then two, what our expectation is versus what the reality of the situation is, we're going to burn out. And here's the craziest thing about all of this. Those folks who are the high achievers, the go-getters, we are the folks who are most likely to suffer from burnout. You know why? Cuz we never want to say die. We never want to give up. We don't want to, nope, I'm going to make it work. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make this square peg fit in this round hole, even if it kills me. And guess what? It's killing you. And you're leaving so much undone because you tried to do too much that didn't need to be done. This idea of this hustle and this grind culture that we have, we really need to stop and reevaluate it. because the only way that we can really reach our purpose, and I would challenge you to really sit and evaluate how much of what you do on a regular basis is connected to your purpose as opposed to connected to your pride. How much of what you do is really connected to you being the best version of yourself, not the most popular version of yourself, not the most accepted version of yourself, because all of those things are things for other people. How much of what you do on a daily basis is connected to what you believe your purpose for existing is? And here's the thing, even if you think your purpose is service, you still have to have your cup full first. When you get on the airplane, one of the first things they tell you, in case of an emergency, oxygen's going to drop down. Put your own mask on first before you help anybody else. Even if you're sitting in that emergency exit, you still have a responsibility to put your own oxygen mask on first. So, enough of this martyr complex. Enough of us burning out and fizzling out and not reaching our true divine purpose. If you die in the process, that purpose dies with you. The only way for you to make sure that you do what you were sent here to do is to live long enough to get it done. Because each of us has a purpose that is assigned uniquely to us. And I know that's hard sometimes. I know it's hard because when you have a big heart, you feel like everybody is your responsibility. I'm going to teach you a wonderful word right now. No. Ooh, come on, say it with me. No. Sometimes the no that you give out, you've got to tell yourself, no, it's not my responsibility to save everyone. There are people who are connected specifically to me. There are people who are assigned to me, and I will know who those people are. Why? Because I will have the divine grace, space, and energy to deal with them. And guess what? I'll also have enough time left over to refill for the next round that comes. So, listen, when your expectation level is dramatically opposed to reality, and you keep pushing and keep persisting, trying to reach that expectation, you are setting yourself up for absolute and total failure. You are going to burn out. You're going to burn out. You're going to be isolated. You're going to be angry. Your health is going to be in disrepair, and you are not going to be able to fulfill the assignment on your life. Now, by contrast, when you take the time to get to know yourself, to find out what your limits and boundaries are, to find out how you feed and fuel your body, your mind, your soul, your spirit, then you will have enough left over to freely give to others. You start pouring from the saucer and leave the cup alone. All right. Laquita said that's a great word right there. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Uh-oh, wait a minute. I'm doing something with the mouse. Connected to purpose or connected to pride. That'll preach. Go ahead and take it, preacher. Go ahead and take it, Rev. Go ahead and take it. And Dr. Carey is saying preach. Yo. Naisha, isn't it though? It's a full sentence. It needs no qualifiers. It needs no extra. You don't have to put special sauce on it. None of that. It will stand alone. No means no. And it's a hard lesson to learn. Saying no feels so icky and so selfish when you're used to giving, but everybody has to know the I always tell my clients, the givers have to set limits because the takers never will. You have to. Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad, Doc. So I'm glad you guys are finding this helpful. Again, the book is Burnout. How to Beat the High Cost of Success. Dr. Herbert Freudenberger, I believe his name is. Um, and if you, I guess I should have had my book up here too. If you need help with tips for practicing self care, you can also grab my book from the website. It is Reclaiming My Time, A Black Woman's Guide to Self Care. It's available on the website, www.awakeningchange.org. And in the book, it is a workbook that is designed to help you implement your own personal, comprehensive, individual self-care plan. I take you through all 8 dimensions of wellness and make sure that you've got a way to fill your cup in those 8 ways. So if you're looking for information on that, like I said, catch the website. It's scrolling at the bottom of the screen right now, www.awakeningchange.org. If you enjoyed this broadcast, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share it with your friends and followers. If you happen to be someone who's looking for workshop presenters or speakers to talk more about things like emotional intelligence and burnout and self-care and leadership development, which is what my doctorate is in, please give me a call. There's a message or a form that you can fill out and leave me a message right on the website, www.awakeningchange.org. I think I got everyone's comments, and there were really no questions. So I'm going to wrap up for tonight. I will be coming back on in a couple of weeks with another topic. If there's a topic that you specifically want to see covered on a broadcast, shoot me a message. Let me know. And if you happen to join late, just go ahead and start from the beginning, hashtag replay, so I know that you're here. Ask any questions or leave any comments, and I will be sure to get back to each and every one of you as soon as possible. But thank you very much for taking time out of your evening today to spend some time with me. And I will see you next time. Please, please, please remember that there is a unique purpose assigned to your life. We need you here. We need you to be your most authentic self, because there's only one of you, and that one is exactly what we need. So stay safe and be well, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care.